the United States has a trade policy. It has a new approach to trade that has come in place with the new administration. We understand that. We respect that. They apply that policy to every country in the world. In terms of negotiations with Indonesia, our approach with respect to the EU, for example, is much more comprehensive. It includes security, it includes defense, it includes broader elements, and there's a symmetry. They're symmetric, those arrangements.
President Trump threatened to impose this additional 10% tariff, regardless of Ontario saying it would take the ad down. Does that suggest there is nothing to be gained from backing down to the U.S. president?
Well, look, with respect to the additional tariff, we haven't seen the specifics about that. And look, I don't want to make a generalization of the situation. I'll repeat and I'll reemphasize, we've made significant progress. We stand by the progress that we had made. We think there is a very good addition to the trading relationship, an additional deal, if you will, that is in the interests of certainly Canadian workers, Canadian families, but very much American workers and American families as well. It's a win-win. When the time comes to pick that up, we would suggest picking it up from there.
Follow-up?
This progress you have made, you've spoken a lot about sectoral tariffs. During your campaign, you were speaking a lot about reaching a comprehensive security and energy deal. Did you at one point give up on that? If so, why?
Well, we talked about, maybe you weren't there, but in July, when we made the decision that we evolved our tariffs with respect to the United States, because we had reached a point by the middle of the summer where under the executive order that pertained at then and still pertains, that the substantial proportion of our trade with the United States is tariff-free. The U.S. was less interested in the security element of the partnership, which is their decision. Look, and so less interested in that, and as well was focused in, for most countries, on these so-called 232 sectors, which are by definition sectoral. And they're the major issue for our economy: steel, aluminum, autos, forest products, and therefore naturally it comes to that, and that's where we've concentrated our efforts. Let me take a step back and just a point of context here, which is, the United States has a trade policy. It has a new approach to trade that has come in place with the new administration. We understand that. We respect that. They apply that policy to every country in the world. You see elements of it in the agreements that were announced here in Kuala Lumpur in the last 24 hours. And so that's the approach that one deals with with respect to having negotiations with the Americans. So it just follows. Our approach in terms of negotiations with Indonesia, our approach with respect to the EU, for example, is much more comprehensive. It includes security, it includes defense, it includes broader elements, and there's a symmetry. They're symmetric, those arrangements, and that's how we tend to do trade. But the U.S. does it differently. It's not how we tend to do trade. That is how we do trade, and the exception is the way the U.S. is doing trade.
Next question, Ian.
Ian Austin from the New York Times. When you made several concessions to the United States, dropping the retaliatory tariffs, the digital tax, and so on, you were challenged, and you said there's a time to push back and there's a time to talk. Well, the talks ended.
Well, they just ended. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, are we back into retaliation? Does this open the door to things like removing the EV tariff?
Look, I wouldn't speculate on that. I'd say the following. I mean, you can speculate. I'm not going to speculate on that. I'd say the following. The approach that the previous government put in place in terms of retaliation and that we kept on for a period of time, the reality is that Canada was one of only 2 countries that had retaliatory tariffs on. So everybody had focus, but only 2 countries had those in place. And the value of those retaliations was diminishing. Remember that tariffs, we put retaliatory tariffs on, there is a cost at home for those tariffs. They were designed to minimize those costs, but there's still a cost at home, and those costs build up over time. So we took the decision, we stand by it in terms of taking those down, taking those off, and then we made the progress that we did. We will, it goes to the earlier question, I think it was Judy's question about contingency plans, and right. And we have a series of measures that we have put in place for the strategic sector, so-called strategic sectors, for steel, for aluminum, both in terms of liquidity support, in terms of more strategic support, so that billions of dollars of strategic support, so they can pivot to new markets, new products. By Canadian policies that are just now getting fully articulated and ramping up, so that we can support there. And there will be more coming in the budget as part of a broader industrial and trade diversification strategy, climate competitiveness strategies, which will help for all of this. So that's the focus of the reaction. I mean, obviously we will protect markets if we see big asymmetries in terms of access, but it's not a decision for today.
Follow-up? And the end of these talks, which you've described as being serious and constructive for what seems like a capricious reason, does this underscore that, is there any value in trying to negotiate something with the Trump administration? Is its word worth anything?
Look, I think that yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. There is value. There's tremendous value in those negotiations. We've seen the U.S. administration has made a series of commitments and agreements that is stood by. Some of those have been in the peace and security area. Some of them have been on the trade side. But just to be absolutely clear, we represent Canada. We are going to fight for Canadians. We are only going to agree to a deal through a negotiation that is in the best interests of Canadians. They are working in the best interests of Americans. There are places where those interests are aligned and they overlap, and we can have a deal. But we're not going to accept something that is not in the best interests of Canadians, and they understand that.